I want you to try something for me, just for a second. Close your eyes and imagine your own face. But I want you to imagine it's been rearranged. Imagine your nose is upside down. The nostrils are flaring wide open, facing the sky.
Okay. That's a disturbing image.
It gets worse. Imagine it starts raining.
Yeah.
Or imagine you're at the gym, hitting the treadmill, and sweat starts pouring down your forehead.
Mm.
If your nose is upside down,
You'd basically drown, right?
you'd drown. It would turn a light drizzle into a life-threatening event. You'd be waterboarding yourself just by walking outside.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. Or think about your eyes. What if they were placed below your mouth? Every time you tried to eat a bowl of soup, you'd be watching the spoon travel up past your eyes.
It would be a logistical nightmare. You'd probably poke yourself in the iris with a fork eventually.
It's a vivid, slightly body horror image to start with,
Yeah.
but it actually brings us right to the heart of what we're exploring today.
It does. We are doing a deep dive into a text called The Divine Architecture of Human Lineage and Love by Myung Moon.
And just to set the stage here, because the author is a religious figure, this isn't a sermon. We aren't here to convert you or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Our mission today is to analyze a very specific and honestly a pretty complex worldview. It's a text that tries to weave together biology, numerology, and theology into one cohesive system. It claims to offer a scientific proof for spiritual concepts.
That's right. And regardless of where you stand on the religious spectrum, the argumentation style is, well, it's fascinating. Reverend Moon uses these physical observations, like the placement of the nose or the function of the eyelid, not just as biological trivia, but as proofs of a deliberate pre-existing intelligence. He argues that the physical world is essentially a blueprint for understanding the spiritual world.
So here's the roadmap for you. We're going to move from the design of the face, those upside-down noses, to a concept he calls the repair shop, which feels very, blue-collar for a theological text.
It really does.
And finally, we're going to land on this really wild theory about love lungs and what happens after we die. It completely reframes the purpose of life on Earth.
It is a journey for sure, from the very concrete, literally the skin on your face, to the metaphysical. But let's stick with that anatomy argument for a moment longer, because it really sets the foundation for his entire logic system.
Okay, let's unpack this. The text spends a lot of time on facial symmetry. We talked about the nose, but he also talks about eyebrows. I never really thought about the utility of eyebrows, to be honest.
Me either. I just thought they were for expression.
But he describes them as being shaped like a bowl turned the right way up.
To divert the sweat. It's a hydraulic system.
Right. If they were upside down, they'd catch the sweat and funnel it right into your eyes. He's looking at these features, eyebrows, eyelashes, the way our eyes are recessed into the skull rather than bulging out. And he's asking, could this really be a happy accident?
And this is where he introduces a central philosophical question that, challenges the standard evolutionary perspective. He asks a very simple question. Which came first, the eye or the sun?
It sounds like the ultimate chicken and egg scenario.
In a way, but he walks you through the logic. The text argues that the environment, the sun, the airborne dust, the wind, the sweat, all of that existed before the eye did.
Okay, that tracks. The sun is older than biology.
Right. So if the sun and dust were there first, he argues that the eye must have been designed by an intelligence that knew about the sun and the dust beforehand.
So the logic is, if eyes evolved randomly, purely through trial and error, they wouldn't have known to include eyelids to block dust or tear ducts to provide moisture until, the eye had already dried out or been blinded.
Exactly, until it was too late. So the argument is that the eye is a complex solution to a problem that the designer knew existed, even before the eye was physically made. It's about anticipation.
Precisely. He writes, if eyes had come into being on their own, do you suppose they would go searching throughout the universe for some hairs they had neglected to provide?
It's a real critique of randomness. He's arguing that form follows function, but that the function was anticipated by a creator who understood the environment.
He actually gets pretty spicy about the evolution aspect, too.
Yeah.
He doesn't pull any punches. There's this part where he's talking about monkeys.
Yes, the text is quite direct there.
He asks if a clever monkey decided to become male or female. Did they hold a committee meeting? Okay, guys, being monkeys is great and all, but let's evolve into humans now. Who seconds the motion?
He's using humor to attack the idea of self-directed evolution, and he mentions teasing his communist friends. This text was written during the Cold War era.
Oh, right.
By calling them monkey boys.
No.
He tells them he'd be their friend once they evolved to his level.
That is a bold way to make friends.
It's provocative, absolutely. But it serves his point. He sees an intentionality in nature that he believes random mutations simply cannot explain. He argues that matter can't generate the creative power on its own to jump from species to species without a plus alpha input.
Which implies an outside source of energy or will. So he's establishing this baseline. Biology isn't accidental, it's architectural.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have the face as a design marvel. But then he takes it a step further. He starts doing math with the face. This is where it gets really interesting for me because I never thought to count the holes in my head.
The numerology of the body. This is a classic theological technique finding symbolic meaning in numbers, but he applies it anatomically.
So if you're listening, count with me. He points out we have 7 holes in our face. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth. 7.
And for him, that number 7 isn't random at all. He breaks it down as 4 plus 3. 4 represents the earth, or the 4 directions, north, south, east, west.
And 3 represents heaven, or the 3 stages of growth. So the face itself is a mathematical map of the universe, a combination of heaven and earth.
He does the same thing with the hand, right?
He does. I found this part actually kind of cool to look at.
Yeah. Look at your thumb. It has 2 joints. He says this represents God, or the center, the invisible axis. Now look at your 4 fingers. Each has 3 joints.
That's 12 joints total.
12 joints total, which he links to the 12 months of the year or the 12 directions of the universe.
And the imagery of the fist, when you clench your fist, where does the thumb go?
It usually tucks inside or wraps across. He says when a baby clenches its fist, the thumb is inside, symbolizing God hidden at the center of the universe, surrounded by the creation.
It's a worldview where nothing is accidental. Every single physical detail is a coded message about spiritual reality.
And this is the kicker. Of all those features, the eyes, the ears, the nose, he says the most important anatomical feature in this text, by far, is
The mouth.
because it's the only one that does 2 things. Think about it. Eyes, ears, nose, they are primarily sensory inputs. They receive information.
But the mouth has a dual role.
It takes in food, that's physical intake, and it speaks words, that's spiritual output.
I like how he connects this to the mind. He says the mouth should only say what the mind intends.
This is the concept of mind-body unity. The text argues that in an original ideal state, there would be no separation between what you think and what you do. Your mouth wouldn't say no if your mind said yes.
There wouldn't be that disconnect where you know you should be kind, but you snap at someone anyway.
Exactly. But clearly we do snap at people. We do lie. We say things we don't mean.
Right, so the text posits that this instrument, the human being, is broken. The connection between the mind, the operator, and the body,
The machine.
the machine, has been severed or damaged.
And that brings us to the repair shop. I love this analogy because it strips away all the mystical clouds and harps. It feels gritty. It's not about floating. It's about fixing a broken machine.
It is a very pragmatic view of religion. He argues that because of a fall, a separation from God, humanity is like a broken instrument. The mind and body are fighting.
We see this contradiction in ourselves, like trying to stick to a diet when your body wants cake. And he points out we see it globally in the conflict between political systems.
So if we're broken instruments, God is the owner who wants us fixed.
And the religious leader, or the Messiah figure in his theology, is the shop foreman.
Right. And he's very specific about his own shop, the Unification Church. He says, look, this isn't a place for a massage. This is a hard repair shop.
That's a crucial distinction. He frames the hardship specifically mentioning things like MFT, which stands for Mobile Fundraising Team, and witnessing or proselytizing as the tools of repair.
For those who don't know, MFT often involves selling flowers or trinkets on the street for like 18 hours a day, sometimes for years. It was grueling work.
Extremely. And he's owning that difficulty. He's asking the reader, do you want a mediocre repair job or do you want to be remolded completely? He suggests that persecution, rejection, and physical exhaustion are actually the friction needed to polish the product.
He even mentions getting an eternal guarantee, like a warranty on your soul.
If you survive the repair process, yes. The goal is to become a person where the mind and body are perfectly aligned, just like the mouth and the mind should be.
But this raises the big question, why? Why do we need to be repaired? What is the ultimate function of this human machine?
This leads us to the text's most profound argument, and honestly the part that stuck with me the most. It's about the physics of love.
This is where the text attempts to rewrite the laws of thermodynamics.
It really is. Standard physics tells us about entropy. If you use energy, you deplete the supply. You drive a car, you burn the gas. You run a marathon, you get tired.
Right. In the physical universe, input equals output minus friction. You always lose a little bit. Perpetual motion machines are impossible.
But he argues love breaks that rule.
He claims love is the only exception to the laws of thermodynamics. In the realm of love, the output is always greater than the input. If you give 100% genuine love, the text argues, you receive more than 100% back.
It's a multiplication of energy, not a depletion. And he uses this to explain God.
Right.
He suggests this is the secret to God's eternal existence. If God were just energy, he would have burned out billions of years ago creating galaxies. But because God is the essence of love, the more he gives, the more he generates. He never runs dry.
That's a beautiful thought. But he connects this high-level concept to biology again with the love lungs theory. This was the biggest aha moment for me in the reading, and it completely changes how you look at, well, everything.
It is the core insight of the text. He describes life not as a single event, but as a progression through 3 distinct environments, or wombs.
Okay, walk us through these 3 stages, because most of us just think, you're born, you live, you die. End of story.
He breaks it down differently. First, you have the water stage. That's the mother's womb. You're living in fluid, receiving everything through the umbilical cord. Now think about the fetus. It has lungs, right?
Right, developing lungs.
But is it using them to breathe air?
No. If a fetus tried to breathe air inside the womb, it would be a disaster.
Exactly. So, for 9 months, the fetus is meticulously building a complex organ, the lungs, that serves absolutely no purpose in its current environment. If the fetus could think, it might say, why am I building these weird sacs in my chest? I get my oxygen from this cord. These seem useless.
But they aren't useless. They're just useless right now. They're being prepared for the next stage.
Precisely. Then comes birth. The text frames birth as a traumatic event for the baby. Imagine it from the baby's perspective. The lifeline, the umbilical cord is cut. The water is gone. It feels like the end of the world.
It feels like death. But suddenly those lungs kick into action.
And you enter the second stage, the air stage. That's life on Earth. The organ you built in the dark suddenly makes sense.
So we are currently in stage 2. We're walking around breathing air.
But here is the crucial connection. The text argues that Earth is just a second womb. Just as the fetus developed lungs it couldn't use yet, the text argues that here on Earth we are developing a spiritual organ we can't fully use yet.
He calls them our love lungs. I love that term.
It's a great term.
So the purpose of life on Earth isn't just to accumulate stuff or have a career or pay taxes. It's a gestation period.
Correct. He argues that the spirit world, the third stage, is an atmosphere of love. Literally, love is the air you breathe there. To survive there, to breathe there, you need fully developed love lungs.
And if you don't develop them,
If you arrive in the spirit world without having developed your capacity to love sacrificially, you'll spiritually suffocate. You won't be equipped for the environment.
that reframes death completely. He says death is just like birth. It's just cutting the cord again.
Yes. Just as the baby fears leaving the womb because it doesn't know about the wider world of air and light, we fear death. We see the body stop and we think it's over. But he argues it's simply a transition to the third and final stage, the love stage. The physical body is just the placenta that we discard once we're born into the spirit world.
That is such a heavy concept. It gives this incredible urgency to life. It means we aren't just living, we are building something inside us.
Right. And unlike the fetus, which builds lungs automatically, we have to build these love lungs voluntarily. We have to choose to do it.
Which begs the practical question, how?
Yeah.
How do we develop these love lungs? We can't just do breathing exercises. We can't go to a gym for this.
This brings us back to the structure of society. The text argues that the family is the workshop or the training ground for these lungs.
And he doesn't paint a picture of a perfect, happy-go-lucky Hallmark family. He gets really specific about the difficulty of family. He talks about the senile grandmother scenario.
It's a very visceral example and one that might make some listeners uncomfortable. He asks, can you clean up after a grandparent who has lost control of their bodily functions? Can you deal with the smell, the mess, and do it with joy?
Not just do it, but do it with joy. That's a high bar.
It is. But he argues that dealing with difficult relatives, the stubborn grandfather, the parents who don't understand you, or the bad spouse, is the ultimate resistance training.
He actually says that if a sensitive woman is matched with a dull or insensitive husband, she shouldn't complain. She should see it as an opportunity to become a master genius of love.
That is certainly a challenging perspective for modern listeners who prioritize compatibility. But within the logic of the text, it fits. He claims God leaves us 95% complete. We are responsible for the final 5%. We create that final percentage by loving the unlovable.
So if I'm hearing this right, the text suggests that by taking a dull person and loving them until they become sensitive, or loving a difficult person until they melt, you are doing the work of creation.
You are essentially finishing God's work. And the difficulty is the point. If everyone was easy to love, if everyone was kind and charming, we wouldn't develop the lungs.
That's like lifting weights. If you only lift styrofoam, you don't build muscle.
Exactly. He argues that overcoming the enemy within your own family is the prerequisite for heaven. If you can love the person who drives you crazy at the dinner table, you are preparing yourself for the breathing of the next world.
This leads to his definition of the original race. When I first saw that term in the text, I thought it was going to be about ethnicity. But it's not, is it?
No, not in this text. He explicitly redefines race or lineage. He says the original race is a people connected by this shared lineage of love. He uses the face analogy again. Grandparents are the eyes looking into the past.
Parents are the nose, the present breath.
And children are the mouth, the future voice. They are all connected parts of one organism. The original race are those who have perfected these relationships.
It's really a call to universalize the family, to treat everyone you meet as if they were your grandparent, parent, or child.
Which brings us back to the repair shop. The process of repairing the human instrument is essentially the process of learning to love sacrificially. It's about fixing that broken connection between mind and body so that you can love difficult people, thereby expanding your lung capacity for the afterlife.
So to sum this up, we've covered a lot of ground today. We started with the design of the eyelid, how it proves an intelligent designer who knew about dust before eyes even existed.
We move through the idea that we are broken instruments in need of a hard repair shop to realign our minds and bodies, a shop where suffering is actually part of the fix.
And we landed on this massive concept that Earth is basically a womb for the spirit world, and we need to be doing our breathing exercises, which is loving difficult people right now.
It creates a very cohesive, if demanding, worldview. It suggests that nothing in your life, not the shape of your nose, not the annoying habits of your spouse, not even the fear of death, is accidental. It's all part of a divine architecture meant to grow you into a being capable of eternal existence.
There's one last metaphor he uses that I think sums it all up: the superseed.
Yes. He compares God to a superseed. Just as a seed contains the embryo and the potential for the full plant, he argues God contains the essence of life. We are embryos growing to resemble that seed.
The goal is to return to the origin, to become seeds ourselves that contain that divine nature. It's a lot to digest, but it definitely makes you look at your family and your face in the mirror a little differently.
It certainly challenges the notion that we are merely biological accidents floating on a rock in space. It demands that we see purpose in every detail.
Here's a final thought I want to leave you with today. It's the question that kind of haunts this whole text for me. If the author is right, and our time on Earth is exactly like a fetus in a womb, what spiritual organs are we neglecting right now?
That's the scary part.
The fetus doesn't know it needs lungs until the moment it's born. What if there are parts of our spirit that are atrophying because we're too focused on the womb of this physical world? What will we desperately need the moment we die that we haven't bothered to build because we were too busy making money or holding grudges?
That is the ultimate question. Are you building lungs, or are you just getting comfortable in the womb?
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.